What's up, everybody? Welcome back to MLB Swing for the Fences here on the Run Pure Sports YouTube channel. It's Tuesday, June 10th. We're talking today's 10-11 game MLB slate, joined always on Tuesdays by Mr. Steve Boyd. And Steve, how you doing on this Tuesday afternoon?
Good. I was away from everyone for a week. Had a good time on vacation, but refreshed and ready to get back at it for the long summer grind. Last night was a bit of a frustrating slate for me personally with the Snakes late after nailing the pitching, but our guy Bryce takes down the 111. Awesome to see that weekly immaculate inning that goes on. So congrats to Bryce. And we have an interesting slate tonight. Coors is back on the slate. We're talking about it beforehand with pretty bad offense coming in that's missing some key pieces. So, we got in 11 gamer that I think has more hitting spots that are super interesting to me than just Coors. So we'll talk about how we're going to navigate that, and really interesting pitching slate too. Not many options that really get you excited.
Yeah, definitely a tough pitching slate. No question about it. Had to dig kind of deep to find, or at least for me, pitchers that I was excited about. And then it feels like summer. It feels like summer finally here in Denver. It took a while, but it seems like that weather kind of everywhere now. We're getting, 70, 80 degrees.
It's 80 here too, finally.
Finally, yeah. And happy to have it. Happy for the heat. And honestly, it makes baseball DFS more fun. I feel like, we got the first 2 months warming up, but we're ready to go now. And, Steve, you're talking about your vacation. I don't think you were completely off the grid. You were very active in the Discord still.
At certain times, yes.
And also, your DFS vacation was also provided by a DFS cruise, right, by DraftKings. It's like you weren't completely out of here.
Yeah. I was able to register a couple slates beforehand. It was pretty comical trying to get lineups in from like Honduras.
For some reason, they won't let me edit my lineup from the coast of Belize. It's like, It's not that surprising, Steve.
Yeah. I was actually able to play the NBA Game 1 Showdown randomly. So, it was a fun week. Happy to be back and back to the grind.
Yeah, happy to have you back for sure. And we'll get into this Tuesday slate now. We got 11 games to talk about. So let's dive right in. We'll go by the DraftKings order of games as always. And we got 2 games starting at 7:10 Eastern, then a little half-hour break. So I think games that are pretty relevant, though, these first 2, Tampa Bay and Boston, the first one that we'll talk about here, this one in Fenway. And, the weather is switching a little bit there, too. Some winds out. It seems like maybe the summer weather getting to Fenway tonight. And I think we're going to see runs in this game. Lucas Giolito on the hill for the Red Sox. Curious what you came out on him, but I really don't think he's got much right now. And then Ryan Pepiot, a decent pitcher, but I would certainly give advantage Red Sox in Fenway in this matchup. Of course, top prospect Roman Anthony. He had a chance last night to be an absolute hero with a walk-off home run. Didn't quite get it done, but he'll be fun to watch, and I do think it makes this Red Sox lineup more stackable overall. Steve, I ended up with 0 interest in either of these pitchers. And all offense here for me. What are you doing with the first game of the night in Fenway?
Yeah, that game last night was crazy. The Rays just didn't want to end it. A couple errors there late. It goes to extra innings. Actually had both sides, but just not the right combos. Yeah, kind of the same thing here. I like both sides. I prefer the Rays side a bit more just because, like you said, Giolito has more of the blow-up possibility than Pepiot does here. And one thing on this slate, if you're not playing Giants, you're going to get everyone pretty low owned. So I'm not really worried about anything outside of the Giants here. Giolito just doesn't look right. The Rays in Boston are a spot where I do want to buy. I'm going to be on this Rays team, kind of like the entire lineup. Bummed that the 2 lows are priced up a bit, but you can pretty much play the entire order here. Caballero is awesome. Every time he gets on base, he steals second and third. He's done that several times in the last couple of weeks. He's up to like 25 steals now for a part-time player, shortstop and outfield. So I lean the Tampa side just because I think it's the better matchup. I think Pepiot is by far the better pitcher, although adding Anthony into Boston is going to make that lineup look much better moving forward. You lean Boston or Tampa here? I think
Tampa for sure. I'm with you. I mean, Giolito, just a pitcher you want to bet against, right? He's got a long track record of giving up a ton of home runs. He's wild. He falls behind hitters, and then he just comes in with this mediocre fastball. It gets tattooed. I think, especially I do think you can go down to the bottom, but like they've got some power up top. Diaz low. Camanero's been crushing it lately. He looks like he's kind of living up to that talent. Aranda has murdered right-handed pitching all season. And then, the back half of the lineup's mostly cheap with some steal upside and some power. So looks like a really good spot. I don't know if you look at the Red Sox bullpen usage, though. These guys are like extremely gassed out. I think just one lefty available out of the pen for the Red Sox as well. Chapman has pitched 3 days in a row. Bernardino 3 of the last 4 and the last 2. So the Rays lefties that are normally pretty big pinch hit risks, I think are a little safer here and just should be in a good spot, the entire game, even after Giolito exits. So I think a really, really good spot for the Rays. Ownership-wise, it does look like the Red Sox are going to be a lot lower owned. Obviously, we're not too worried about that, but I do think that's a little bit interesting, at least looking at the ownership discrepancy, specifically, Steve, between Caminero and Devers. I would rate them as a pretty similar play here, but it looks like Caminero will have much more ownership.
Yeah, and just want to touch on this from Mint King. Yeah, I'm not really concerned about Giolito's stats from before the injuries. Injuries have sapped a lot of what he was prior, so I'm not really concerned about BVP stuff, especially with a guy like him.
Yeah, agreed with that. I think the Rays could be in for a big night here in Fenway specifically, and then Devers, Roman. I mean, the Red Sox look good too. The Red Sox lefties. I think that whole top half of the lineup looks pretty good if you want to go with the Red Sox side of it, and also a game I think you could game stack if you wanted to go in that direction. Let's get to the other 7:10 Eastern time game: Nationals and Mets. Griffin Canning going for the Mets here, 7,400 on DraftKings. Projecting, I think most places, as one of the better point per dollar options on this slate, which I do understand why. He's been good on the surface. He's cheap. And on first glance, it does look like he's too cheap. But we'll talk about the Nationals, who I like quite a bit here. And then Mackenzie Gore, who I think both of us are pretty interested in tonight against this Mets team. Yes, a dangerous lineup for sure, but there's just not very much upside anywhere at pitching tonight, and I think Gore has it in any matchup, including this one. Plenty of strikeouts in this lineup for someone like Mackenzie Gore. So on most slates, Steve, most 11-game slates, I'm not sure I'd want a 10K Mackenzie Gore against the Mets, but on this one, I think he's one of the best pitching plays. Where'd you end up with Nationals and Mets?
Yeah, I think if you take the name away from Gore and just put his stats up, I think most everyone would agree that he deserves this price tag.
Yeah.
Obviously, the prize possession in that huge Juan Soto trade where they got James Wood and Abrams. Gore was I believe the highest prospect in that deal. He was expected to have the potential to become an ace, and that's exactly what he's doing this year. I believe the highest strikeout rate in all of baseball, up at 35.4%.
He looks a lot like Crochet, his stats. You know, the huge strikeout rate, yes, some walks, some wildness, some hard hits, but like the strikeouts are just off the charts for Gore.
And he looks awesome out there every single time. Like he just looks like a horse. Yep. 7+ strikeouts in 6 straight starts. He's got 7+ in 11 of 13 starts in the season. I think he can even give up a little bit of damage and still get to 25 here, which is kind of what he's done all year. And then if he has a clean start, like he did last time out, he could be the score that you need. I think he's the most likely pitcher where he puts up a score that you're just going to have on the slate. I know we'll talk about guys like McCullers, and we're going to talk about Canning here. I just think there's a lot more downside in a guy like McCullers, especially once you dig into the underlying stuff, which I know that you're going to mention later. But I love Gore. He's my SP1 by far on the slate. I'm going to try to get to him in my main lineup. Best XFIP on the slate.
Another thing, Boyd, if Gore puts up 30, like there might not be another pitcher on the slate who gets 20. Like, that wouldn't shock me at all.
That's what I mean. I mean, even in the projections, the highest projection on the entire slate, we've got Lance McCullers at 17. So this is kind of an IKB spot, I think. With this projection on Gore, I think it's far too low.
Me too.
So I'm going to lean into that. I actually love spots like this, DC, where we can kind of put our, I guess, thinking caps on and play a guy who I think on this specific slate should be way higher owned than 15%. So I'm going to lean into that. I'm going to be way over on Gore. I'm going to have some Canning in my 20 just because of the projection, but it's a low strikeout matchup. I know you're going to talk about the Nats bats. That's one of the reasons I'm not super high on Canning on like a main team is, I mean, third lowest strikeout rate in baseball against righties. I just like the guys around him more. We'll talk about Bassett. We'll talk about Kyle Harrison. So I'll have some Canning and a bunch of Gore, and then I want you to talk about Nats because I know you're interested in here.
Yeah, like Brandon, Beaner mentioned, the Mets coming off Coors. I think that's another plus for Gore. And like you said, he's just one of the few guys who goes out there and looks like, he's going to try to go 7 innings and be a horse, and they're going to let him do it. There's not many, right? It's interesting that they're mostly lefties. Skubal, Crochet, Reagans can be a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. And I think Gore has kind of joined that elite group right now. So, yeah, awesome.
The Nats don't really have anything else in the rotation, too. Like, they need him to pitch well every time out and go deep.
100%. Yeah, and then the Nats, I know I got quite a few people on the Reds last night. It's honestly kind of the same argument. It's a overrated, not in DraftKings price, but in terms of his stats so far. Mm-hmm. Pitcher, Griffin Canning, right-handed pitcher, in the best hitting conditions. I know that goes against Gore, but the best hitting conditions that Citi Field has seen all year, wins out to right center field. The left-handed heavy Nationals, their first 5 hitters, which are the ones that I really like, are lefties against Canning, who does not have a good track record really in general, but especially against left-handed bats. Tired Mets pen. There's only, I believe, one lefty available there as well. Just, I think, lines up really, really well for this Nationals team. You do have to choose between Nate Lowe and Josh Bell, which always sucks. I guess I'll just take the cheaper Josh Bell. But honestly, most of these Nats bats, they're hitting the ball hard right now. Specifically Garcia. Looks like he's really found a groove. So I like this team a lot against the Mets, obviously. Canning is a decent pitcher. But it does make sense correlation-wise, too, with Mackenzie Gore, right? If they're able to do damage, Mets maybe punt the game if Gore is just kind of smashing them. And you can see the Nationals doing some damage in New York in the first game of the series, which I'm sure they would love to do. So I think the upside is pretty high for this Nationals team. But it sounds like you're not super high on them, Steve.
No, I mean, I don't hate it. You got me on the Reds last night. It's, like you said, a pretty similar spot.
Yeah. Low owned, you get leverage against the chalk pitcher and Canning.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
I guess my only pushback would be the freaking price tags on Abrams and Wood. I wish they were cheaper, but
if they smash, it doesn't matter. I mean,
no one's going to have them, and the rest of the lineup is super cheap. So that kind of balances it out. Scott's talking about Gore's home road splits. Yeah, look at where he's pitched his road games at Toronto, who doesn't strike out, in Coors, at Philly, at Great American, at Baltimore. Really tough road schedule so far for Gore.
Yeah, that could be a tiebreaker or something like that for me, but not on this slate. It's not gonna move me off who I think is the best or maybe second best pitcher overall on this DFS slate. Texas and Minnesota up next. Simeon Woods, Richardson, very run-of-the-mill, kind of average-ish right-handed pitcher against Tyler Mahle, who I think kind of qualifies for that a little bit too. These are not 2 pitchers I use often, Steve, if I can avoid it. Richardson cheap enough sometimes where he's worth it. But, not like really trying to target against them every time they're pitching or anything like that. Twins with arguably the best bullpen in baseball too. For people looking at the Rangers here, I get it, but that's a bit concerning. I found myself not super interested in this game overall, Steve. What are you doing with Rangers and Twins?
Yeah, our guy VIP earlier was talking about the Rangers. I was like, I didn't even know they were on the slate, because I was talking about games that I liked more because I'm not interested in either pitcher here at the price tags. I would be interested in the Rangers if they were up against a different bullpen, but if Woods Richardson doesn't have it, like they're just going to go to the bullpen, and this has been the best bullpen in baseball as far as estimators go. So Rangers haven't done much lately outside of Semien. I leave for a week and he hits 500 or something while I'm gone. They're doing nothing all season. Corey Seager
I don't believe I got any of those Simeon points.
Well, anyone who stacked Rangers didn't win because Corey Seager did not have a hit the entire time I was gone. So I think this is kind of just like a cross-off game for me. I think Molly's a good enough real life pitcher to like not get crushed. And I'm just not really interested in either side here. So on a big slate, you have to make some cuts, and this is one of the games where I'm just going to pass overall.
Yeah, 11 games to choose from. Don't got to get invested in all of them, although probably this next one, I at least will have some investment here. Yankees and Royals. This one in KC where, it's summer, 85 degrees, and Kauffman Stadium will start to play pretty hitter-friendly for a lot of the rest of the summer, not necessarily for home runs, but for everything else. It's a tough park for strikeouts, great park for dropping base hits in. Everything other than home runs, good place to hit, tough place to pitch. We've got the most expensive pitcher on the slate. I think an earned price tag for Max Fried, who has been incredible this year, no question about it. Not the most appealing matchup, I don't think, for Fried. I do expect him to pitch well, Steve, but I just don't know if the strikeouts are going to be there for him against, I think, an improving Royals lineup. And then on the other side, Noah Cameron, fellow lefty, has been very, very fortunate so far. There's no way around it. Maybe you want to argue, people do, that he has some skill. Okay, but just – what is it, like a 99% left on base rate?
Oh, I'm gonna bring them all up.
You got the Noah Cameron number, so I'll leave those.
I did the playbook, so I had to write this out.
9K Noah Cameron, not going to play for Boyd. Go ahead, Steve. I think this game is very interesting, especially on the Yankees bat side of it. But go for it. Yeah,
just kind of tough to pay 10-5 for Max Fried with a 4.5 strikeout prop. Yeah. Like you said, the Royals' bottom 5 strikeout team in baseball. Pasquantino's gotten hot. He probably pitches well here, but I just think Gore has the upside to have like a 10 strikeout game where I'm not sure Fried does against the Royals here. And then, it's all Yankees bats for me. We pull up the playbook here. Cameron's got 5 starts under his belt. He's got a .85 ERA, but a 4.6 xFIP, which is 4th worst on the slate behind Michaelis, the Coors guy, and Simeon Woods Richardson, pretty much due to just insanely lucky numbers, like you said. 148 batting average on balls in play, 99.1% left on base rate, and only a 5% home run per fly ball rate. So, he's a lefty with a good changeup. They normally at least find a place in the major leagues, but this is not going to be like some dominant starter. He's a soft tossing lefty, sits 90-91, doesn't miss bats, 16% strikeout rate is only worse than Michaelis and Quinn Priester on this entire slate. It's a matchup with elite hitting weather conditions, like you said, mid 80s in KC, probably the best hitting conditions we've had there all season. And we do like a couple of the cheaper pitching options on the slate. With Jazz back, the Yankees, this is their best lineup that they're going to have all season, except I guess when Giancarlo Stanton comes back soon. This is a pitcher that I want to continue to buy against as long as the spot makes sense. And just completely unowned Yankees in a great hitting environment. Against a guy who's due just extreme regression is a spot that I'm going to play every time. Aaron Judge I'm seeing 6% has got to be one of the lowest on the season. The Yankees aren't cheap because these guys can all hit, obviously, outside of the bottom of the order. So I'm super interested in the Yankees. I think they are arguably the best stack on the entire slate. Saberson loves them here, as you can probably imagine. So, yeah, I love the Yankees. I think I might play them on my main team if I can get something to fit. You really do want the righties, Goldschmidt and Judge, to start out with and then build out from there. But yeah, this is all Yankees bats for me here. I'm not buying the start from Cameron. And when I was gone, I missed the Andrew Abbott finally getting hit and Randy Vasquez finally getting hit. So I can't miss this one too.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's the only thing I would highlight. I think very, very clearly Goldschmidt and Judge are the top two bats on the Yankees. If you're playing the Yankees, I would absolutely get those two in there. And honestly, even if you're not, I'm perfectly willing to just play two Yankees and play those two and move on from it. Because I do think Goldschmidt, I think, has been the best hitter in baseball against lefties all season long. And then obviously Judge. This feels like a spot where Judge is going to nuke a couple off of Cameron. I mean, just how good he's been, and I think he profiles perfectly. So do you have a preference beyond those two, though? Because I'm sure you agree with me on that. But like between Grisham and Bellinger and Jazz and Jason Dominguez, I think it's pretty close between those guys.
Yeah, I don't have super strong conviction. I would say probably Volpe, Bellinger would be my next two, just because I don't think the left on left for Belly matters that much, and I think that he's going to have more spike games than the other outfielders, and he's not that much more expensive. Like, he's only 200 more than Grisham, only 600 more than Dominguez. And if things go the way that I think that they might, Cameron's not going to be in there for 6-7 innings anyways. So I'm not scared to go to the lefties here. Jazz is expensive, but has been red hot since coming back, stealing bases too. So yeah, I mean, this is an awesome stack. No one's going to play them, and they're arguably the best offense in baseball. So I just love the way it lines up here.
What? I don't really get why people aren't on Goldschmidt and Judge, but hey, that's those are spots to take advantage of. So we'll hope to do so.
Well, it's tough to play Goldschmidt at first when the Giants guy is going to be 50% owned. So
give me Casey Schmidt. Is that what you're talking about?
No, Wilmer Flores.
Oh, yeah. Give me Goldschmidt over Flores straight up. Yeah, I don't even need the ownership discount on that one. But we'll move it along to the Atlanta Braves and Milwaukee Brewers. Quentin Priester going here for the Brewers. He's got pretty severe splits in his brief sample size. Been hit really, really hard by lefties. Been pretty effective overall against right-handed bats. Braves, I talked about it yesterday. Might be coming alive a little bit here. Return of Ronald Acuna. We know this team can do damage, right? I think you're on my side here, Steve. When you look at this lineup, Acuna, Riley, Matt Olson, Ozuna, we've seen what Baldwin's on in the lineup tonight, but we've seen what he can do. I think if these guys can stay healthy, I think the Braves could be in for a big summer still, at least with the bats. But yeah, in Milwaukee here, on this particular slate, I don't love it outside of Olson, who I think is an awesome play. And then Grant Holmes going for the Braves. I don't play him very often. He's been, I guess, pretty solid this year once again, better than I anticipated for sure, but probably not going to him here. And I don't know, not super interested in the Brewers side either. So I guess another game I won't have a ton of exposure to, most likely. What about you, Steve? Braves and Brewers.
I think Holmes is more of a 20 max MME play, right? Under 8K, just a way to kind of get some more exposure in that range. He's been pretty rock solid, like you said. The walk rate is the scary part, 10.4% walk rate, pretty much tied for the worst on the slate with guys like Lance McCullers, who is going to be super popular. So I think he's fairly similar to him in a little bit tougher matchup. But the Brewers just have not hit right-handed pitching. Over the last month, 27th in weighted runs created plus, 26 in ISO in the split. They've been kind of an underrated poor offense. We saw Sale just mow through them last night. I think Holmes is playable here for sure, under 8K. I'm going to have some of him. And then the Braves, the Braves were the winning 5-man in the 111 last night for Bryce. because when they go off, it's going to be power, which is exactly what happened last night. I really like them. Even if you're playing 2 and 3 mans, DC, I mean, that's a way to get there too, is like your full stack goes off and you've got Ozuna and Riley in there and they both hit bombs, and that's how you get to the top. So really like the top 4 here. Albies is cheap. Murphy's cheap at catcher. Michael Harris, man. God, he's like sack bunting now when guys.
Notice I did not include. I stopped at Ozuna when I was talking about the Braves lineup coming to.
What is up with Michael Harris? Like, it's a good thing he's a good defender because he has been terrible with the bat. I don't know why he's hitting 5th, but yeah, for me it's 1 through 4, 6 and 7 are my main targets here. The bottom of the order isn't even that much cheaper than guys like Ozuna, Albies, and Murphy, so I don't really feel the need to go to White or Allen at all. So I'm going to have some Braves here. Priester, like I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Noah Cameron, second worst xFIP on the entire slate. So I think the Braves are going to be a team that we're going to be playing more of as the season goes on, as long as they're able to stay healthy, right? Like, this team, when it has this top 4 the way it is, it's just a tough out.
Yeah, 100%. And Michael Harris. Yeah. Peso Mike, Money Mike into Peso Mike. I like that.
Why is he hitting 5th, dude?
I don't know. I think both of us played a little too much Michael Harris at the beginning of the season. We're a little bit bitter about his struggles, but I've stopped clicking the Michael Harris button for the most part, and we'll try to stay away from it tonight as well. Next game up, Toronto and St. Louis. This one in Busch Stadium in St. Louis, 80 degrees there. A little bit of modest wind out to right field for 2 veteran right-handed pitchers. Miles Michaelis continues to dance through raindrops and somehow still has an ERA below 4. I don't know, just knows how to pitch. Does Miles Michaelis, probably does it again tonight, I'm sure, against the Blue Jays. And then Chris Bassett, who I think both of us are going to be interested in. Not a pitcher I play a ton of, just because, when there are
he's been 9K all year,
too.
He's also been 9K, 9,500 all season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's expensive for the strikeouts that he typically has. But on this slate, Steve, I'm not as worried about upside, right? Like, give me the 2-condom Chris Bassett pitcher, like, kind of sounds like a good idea. Sometimes, 15 to 20 fantasy points is enough to get the job done. And it does seem to me like this could easily be a slate like that where, just 15 fantasy points. I just don't think you're going to be that far behind someone's SP2 other than, maybe a big Gore performance who we're both going to have in a lot of lineups. So I think Bassett just makes a lot of sense on this specific slate as a play. I know you're going to be on board with that. Offense here, no Newbar in the lineup either for the Cardinals, which that's the best bet against Bassett to begin with. So, yeah, that's a decent bump. Anyway, over to you. Cardinals and Blue Jays.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. I just saw that Cardinals do not have Newbar in there. Yeah, like you mentioned, this is the lowest price of the season for Chris Bassett. He was up to 9,500 earlier. Has pitched really well all season. He isn't a super high strikeout guy, but no one on this slate really is outside of McCullers and Gore. So, you're not giving up as much as you would have, or you would on certain slates. Like if you're playing him over Chris Sale or something, that's a different thing. But 24% strikeout rate in the season, 3.5 ERA, 3.3 xFIP, 3.5 expected ERA. He's just been rock solid. He's a better pitcher than Griffin Canning, and I think pretty similar, if not better, matchup honestly against the Cardinals. They didn't do anything last night until the end of the game. It's a tough park to hit in as well. I just think Bassett just kind of seems super comfy for me under 8K, and I'm going to be playing him over Griffin Canning, who I think is going to be at least twice as owned as Bassett here. So
I see Bassett as a better long-term pitcher in a better matchup in a slightly better place to pitch. I think he's got all 3 going for him.
Yeah, I like Bassett way more than the projections do. I mean, I'm seeing an 8% own. I just don't really get it here. I'm not scared of this Cardinals lineup, especially without Nootbaar. I think it's interesting what we do with Toronto bats here. They're super cheap. Like, it's always enticing to stack against Michaelis. It doesn't usually work out, but Toronto bats have been hot while I was gone, and they didn't really increase their price tags much. Like, we saw Kirk on the winner last night. He's hitting third at 3,400. The entire lineup is cheap. No Vlad in there, it looks like, tonight.
I really like the 2-3-4, Steve. Barger, Kirk, and Springer. Springer's been mashing too. I think those three all look good.
Yeah. Barger with huge power, that's kind of what you want with a cheap guy up at the top of the order. He's just going for the downs every swing if you watch him hit. So I'm with you here. This is more secondary stacks against Michaelis. Looks like they have Jimenez back in there. I don't really want to mess with the back half of the order here, though.
Yeah, kind of like the spot for Kirk. He seems like he just,
he's been awesome this season.
Yeah.
Like they signed him to the extension before the year. He's like quietly been one of the better defensive catchers in baseball too. So really good deal for the Blue Jays to get him signed. He
feels like a really strong bet to square up Michaelis every time those two. Their bats just seem like they're going to end in some hard contact for Kirk. So
yeah,
3,400 a catcher makes a ton of sense there. We're both high on Bassett on the slate, so hopefully he'll pitch well. And we'll move on to the next game, another one where we'll have to talk about Lance McCullers, who I think may end up being the highest owned pitcher on the slate. I know the projections don't say that, but I think McCullers is going to get a lot of ownership. Matchup against the White Sox here. He's pitched awesome for the last three starts in a row. He's been excellent. Now he has had a very strikeout friendly schedule. Pittsburgh, the A's, the Mariners, the Rangers offense has been sputtering, and then the Reds who crushed him, and then the White Sox before that. So it's been, he's been great on the surface. There's no doubt about it, but we were talking early, and if you dig in a little bit under the hood on McCullers, it's a below average strike rate overall. He's missing fewer bats than a league average pitcher. He's throwing fewer first pitch strikes than a league average pitcher. He's not getting a ton of chases, and it doesn't really add up for McCullers. So I've been admittedly a little bit low on and have not, super taken advantage of this run. So, it's not that for me. I really just think he might be a little bit overrated right now, and everybody's jumping on board. Like Lance McCullers is some sure thing. I didn't mention also, Steve, they pushed this start back. He missed his last start after he threw, a lot of pitches in those first two starts. He's dealt with a ton of injuries over his career. It could be nothing, but, it could be that he had a sore arm and he needed a couple more days, which I think could potentially, obviously, wear him down. I wouldn't expect him to stay healthy for all that long. So I guess a long rant against McCullers, who I still might have on a team or two, but I think there are some scary red flags here for McCullers that the general DFS playing public, if you will, doesn't seem to be really looking into in terms of the ownership. So curious where you ended up with McCullers, and then, Shane Smith going against the Astros. I'm honestly kind of just out on both sides of that matchup, but where'd you end up in this one, Steve? White Sox and Astros.
Yeah, interesting spot for McCullers here, just because of the context of the slate. There aren't that many high upside arms, which is why I'm so interested in Gore. I played him. I wanted to be early on McCullers, and I played him in that red start. Had an awesome team around it, but I know we talked about that earlier. He just has like the quote unquote cleanest matchup. He was
the first guy, Steve, when I opened up the slate last night, just look at it on my phone or whatever. He was the one that stood out as kind of the best play. Like right away. So
on paper, he's the best play against this White Sox team. I think you can poke holes in it, like you said, though, with the start being pushed back. He's never a guy who's stayed healthy or been consistent, even when he's been healthy. He's coming off of a couple, super lucky starts as far as the strikeouts. Like you said, the swing strike rate is pretty low. And then I'll say, I think this is probably the best version of the White Sox lineup that we've seen. They've called up some prospects. Tauchman takes a bunch of walks. Meadroth has been really good. The White Sox over the last couple of weeks are like top 8 in walk rate. And that's the one thing that has always been McCullers' issue is the high walk rate. It's the highest on the slate here. So I think that there are ways to talk yourself out of McCullers. I think he comes in higher than what Sabres got projected at 30%. I think he's like 50% in the 121. Just not a type of guy that I'm going to play at that ownership, at least in single entry. Obviously, I'll have some in my 20 because of the strikeout upside. But I just do not get a warm and fuzzy playing him into extreme ownership on a slate like this. So I'll be lower on him. I don't even mind taking some White Sox bats against him. We've already seen it go horribly wrong. So, it's a bit of a scary fade because of how good the results have been, but I'm pretty comfortable with it. He's only 1,500 less than Gore, and I just don't see him in that same tier. So that's where I'm at with him. I'm not on the White Sox pitcher, but I'm also not really playing the Houston bats here on this slate.
The White Sox lineup is still obviously not good. There's very little power, but if you look at most of these hitters, they are low strikeout, high walk rate guys, right? Guys that are trying to work counts. Talkman, Benintendi, Edgar Cuero hits a poor man's Luis Arraez up there. Kyle Teal, I think, is going to be a good left-handed bat. So this is not.
I like the Nats of last year, where they're just pesky, right?
Yeah, it's just not the spot that it was, and I think that people think it is for Lance McCullers, who I'm sure will go out there and absolutely smash now that we've.
No, yeah, I think
he's first is good name.
Sports better, yeah. Shane Smith has been good, just in a low strikeout matchup at 8K. Just not a guy that I'm super interested here.
But that's why we're not on the Astros bats at all.
Yeah.
Either. So makes sense there. All right, to Coors Field we go. Giants and Rockies. Kyle Harrison coming in at 6,600 against the Pace Eaters. I kind of like Mr. Harrison tonight. I'll talk more about him in a moment. And then Carson Palmquist going for the Rockies. Proud owner of an 8.5 ERA so far on the season, but Rockies with no better options will run out Mr. Palmquist and then whatever they've cooked up in the bullpen tonight, Steve. I'm not really sure it matters. They just do not really have any good pitchers. So, of course, the Giants are going to carry massive ownership tonight, partly because they got a lot of cheap bats. You can go to the bottom half of this lineup if you want to and get every bat below it, 4K or below. The most expensive bat is 5K flat. So people see, of course, what's the total tonight? 6 or 7? It's got to be up there somewhere. In Coors Field, can afford it. It's hard to really say anything to those people that they're doing it wrong. But we'll just – how likely is it that they get there compared to the ownership, right? That's kind of the question that we're asking. So I'm a little lower on the Giants bats tonight. Of course, would not be shocked at all if they have a monster day. It is hot here in Coors Field, and this Rockies team is going to continue to give up a ton of runs. No question about that. But over to you, Steve. Talk about Giants and Rockies.
Yeah, let's talk about the Rockies first. Decent team total here, but man, I know you're going to talk about Harrison a bit. I like the price. We've played pretty routinely pitchers going into Coors, and they've been really owned. On a shitty pitching slate, we've got a 6K pitcher with strikeout upside at 10% with a good projection. He projects basically the same as Canning, the same as Holmes, only 2 points behind Dylan Cease on this slate, who we'll talk about. I kind of like Kyle Harrison here. He had huge strikeout rates in the minors, 35% plus every season. He was the Giants' number one prospect coming into last season, top 25 guy overall with a 55 future value grade from Fangraphs. He started the year in the bullpen, getting built up. I think he got 87, 88 pitches last time out, got hit with a line drive, looks fine. So I'm expecting full go here for him against just the worst team offensively that we've seen in a long time, dead last against left-handed pitching and weighted runs created plus. They do have some power, but it hasn't shown up. last 2 weeks, dead last in ISO as well against lefties. I think I can't believe more people aren't on him. He was pretty popular 2 starts ago when he faced, who was it, Miami, and crushed. And now he's even more built up here against a worse team. I get the I get the weather concerns, but this is a guy who misses bats against a team that swings and misses more than anyone in baseball. I kind of like his outs prop. I took over 15.5 at plus 135. So you're getting a good plus number there. I think he could have some easy innings with strikeouts here. He's a young pitcher who is going to be volatile. So I do get the Colorado play, but that just hasn't worked out all season. And I'm going to continue to take cheap, talented arms against this team, really regardless of where the game is being played.
Yeah. So, specifically on Harrison, he did pitch some last year and was decent, right? So he kind of had that experience. Now he's getting his kind of second chance to go. And I'm seeing his stuff all looks like it improved kind of over the offseason or, whatever it did compared to last year when he was solid. I actually think there's some juice to Harrison, not just against the Rockies, but as a pitcher who, could climb into the 8K, mid 8K range.
Yeah. He was a top 25 overall prospect last year.
Yeah, so I'm actually high on Harrison, not just for this matchup, but going forward. And in this matchup specifically, though, his best pitch is a fastball that he has great command over. Throws it like 55% of the time, which, that's kind of I guess maybe would be a slight red flag against his long-term success. But against the Rockies, man, if you can pinpoint your fastball, I think he can get ahead of these hitters, and they're just so awful that once you do, they'll chase anything. You can see Harrison. Of course, there's risk, right? It's Coors Field. Best hitting weather of the year there, best hitting weather on the slate by far, but everything outside of Coors Field here, the matchup, Harrison's talent, specifically his arsenal versus this team, all of that looks good to me. So, and then the price tag, right? 6,600, people aren't really on him. It doesn't seem, all aboard the Harrison train. Sounds like you're on board, which I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, he's also throwing way harder than last year. He's throwing 92, 93. He's up to 95, 96 this year. So, we'll see how this goes. It's a slate where we don't love pitching, so I'm willing to gamble on this. I want to play the expensive Yankees, so I'm in on Harrison. How you play the Giants, I think, is going to be super interesting. They lost Matt Chapman going into today, so this is the weakest lineup of the season, the entire season for the Giants here. There's no Yastrzemski in there as well. So outside of Lee, Ramos, and Flores, you don't really have, and Adames, the top 4, no one else I don't really believe are major league level hitters. And Encarnacion is not. So he's hitting 5th here. He's maybe the biggest pinch hit risk on the entire slate, especially since Yaz is not starting. Encarnacion has started 3 games this season. He's been pulled when a righty comes in immediately for Yaz in all 3. And he's going to be 30-40% owned on the slate. So I think he's the easiest fade there. I'm sure that'll come back to bite me in the ass. But you got him. Dom Smith, who was playing Xbox 2 weeks ago, is hitting 6th. Casey Schmidt is a pinch hit risk, hitting 7th. They have a couple infielders that they can bring in for him. Patrick Bailey can't hit his way out of a paper bag, hitting 8.
See, with all these shitty hitters, can I interest you in a 5K?
No. No, because they're going to score some, but I don't know. At these price tags, I just don't see how these guys aren't 30, 40, 50% owned in single entry. I think it's more of a discussion for single entry stuff, right? Because, I'm going to play some in 20. They have a 6.7 team total. I just think it's an interesting fade. This is one of the worst lineups that's played in Coors all season, basically.
I might play a Palmquist lineup. I think it makes some sense. He's going to get 100 pitches. He had a high strikeout rate in the minors, a shitty lineup. You get leverage. He's the cheapest pitcher on the board. If he gets you 10 fantasy points, you're probably in a pretty good spot on the slate, honestly, right? Because that probably means the Giants didn't nuke and your cheap pitcher did fine. So
yeah, I will say I am really interested if you're not playing a 5-man, like a 3-man at the top of this order. Ramos has been just incredible over the last month. Looks like that breakout last year is real for him.
He's
I think he's by far the best play. Flores obviously smashes lefties. I think he ends up being those two the highest owned on the entire slate for good reason.
do you think it's a bad play to play a one-off Ramos, who I do agree is the best play, but on a massively owned stack, is it? I don't know. Genuinely curious what you think.
Yeah, I think it's fine because if the stack fails, but he's the guy who gets there, and you need that score. I mean, we saw it last night with Alejandro Kirk. Like he was either the second or third most owned catcher. The stack didn't do anything, but he had 30, and he was on Bryce's winning team. So in good spots, I don't mind the owned one-offs just because a lot of the times, one or two of them will put up big scores, which is why we play mini stacks, right?
Yeah, no question about it. That's Coors Field. We'll move it to the A's and the Angels. This one in Los Angeles. Jose Soriano going to be going for the Angels. Guy we had some success playing last year. The strikeouts, though, just aren't coming for him, and his stuff not quite the same this year either. Soriano, not my favorite play, even at 7K, and then no real interest in Mitch Spence against the Angels at 7,500. Angel stack looks good to me here. Soriano just doesn't give up any power, so I think it's kind of hard to get to the A's in my opinion. But where'd you end up, Steve, with A's and Angels here?
Yeah, so the Angels were the most popular team last night. Didn't love the spot for them. So of course they score on like 5 ground ball singles and a couple errors and stuff. I think the spot for them tonight is way better than it was last night. Mitch Spence is going to give up power, throws hard. The A's bullpen has just been horrendous, man. Like we saw it again last night. 7.47 ERA over the last month. So I really like the Angels. I think they're an interesting pivot now that they've been crushing the ball. They've actually been better against right-handed pitching, even with this right-handed heavy lineup. They're going to strike out against everyone because they're all just up there trying to hit bombs. If you watch these guys swing, they've actually not been great against lefties, which is interesting. But top 6 ISO against right-handed pitching over the last month. We know that Spence is going to be volatile. So yeah, I'm really in on the Angels here. Saber likes them a good bit. They're the guys you want are expensive. So yeah, I mean they're going to be way lower owned than yesterday. I really like them here. I think if you're playing the A's, you just pick off the left-handed bats. Soriano just such a huge ground ball rate against right-handed pitching. I will say though, if they're able to get Soriano out of there early, both these teams bullpens have been bad. Angels bottom 5 bullpen as well. So this is a game where I kind of like both teams to score. I just kind of know where it's coming from with the Angels, which is going to be power.
Yeah, the Angels remind me a little bit of the Braves, where they're a really good team to take 1 or 2 bats from, because you're mostly chasing home runs with these guys. They're not, it's probably not going to be the steals and getting the old windmill going. Mostly long balls with the Angels that you're looking for. Dodgers and Padres up next. Dylan Cease going for San Diego. Another interesting spot. I was pretty low on Nick Pivetta yesterday. I just don't really want to pick on this Dodgers team. You could bring up stats over the last week or 2 weeks sometimes, but I can see the names in the lineup, and that's not the pitcher that I want. That I want to go. I don't want to go against Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts and Will Smith and Teoscar Hernandez. So I'm not going to play Cease here. And then looks like the Dodgers will go with Matt Sauer, who will go 2 or 3 innings. I'm not 100% sure. Wasn't going to play him anyway.
Yeah.
What are you doing, Steve, with Dodgers and Padres?
Yeah, no interest in Sauer here. I'll have some Cease just because the strikeout upside on a slate without much pitching upside, but definitely not on a main. I actually played some Dodgers last night against Pivetta. They got off to that rocking start and then just kind of fizzled out late. And that's what you're going to get in this series because the bullpens are so good on both sides.
Yeah.
So really lukewarm for me on both sides with the bats. Like it's going to have to come early. And I'll have some Cease, but not too much. Like I like the other guys more. Like you said, you're playing into a healthy Dodgers lineup, which is just so deep now that Teoscar and Edman are back. Teoscar's been bad, but that's not going to sustain long term. So yeah, it's some Cease and no bats here really in that park.
Yes, sir. Last game of the night, we go to the desert for the Snakes and the Mariners in Arizona. Brandon Pfaadt, who I'm a little tilted. I didn't get to take advantage of his last 2 starts. I've been playing lefties against this guy for a while now and will continue to do so. I think we maybe had a minor disagreement on if Pfaadt was going to turn the corner, but it appears not to me with Brandon Pfaadt. I think he's the same old dude. And the top of this Mariners lineup looks pretty good. Crawford, Polanco, you throw Julio in there, and then, of course, the big dumper who hits a home run seemingly every night. 6K. Price sticker shock for him, but he's earned every penny.
He's got 26 bombs.
And I always love the D-backs, but I do think they're in another good spot here against Logan Evans, who I think is pretty mediocre at best, frankly. I think we're going to see runs in this one, Steve. Mariners and D-backs, good game to end the slate.
Yeah, good. I think this is the best game stack of the slate.
Sure.
I think you can argue outside of possibly Boston. Had the Arizona 5-man last night. Got the leadoff bomb. We start to windmill a little bit, and then they do nothing for like 7 innings. Yeah. I think they were like 1 of 12 with runners in scoring position.
Always fun.
Just a great first slate back from the trip. Just to put you right back into
12 kicks to the balls is what that is.
Yeah, bases loaded, Ks. It had everything. But yeah, since we have Coors, we've got everyone besides Corbin Carroll under 5% against Logan Evans here, who's due some regression. He's had some success so far, but nothing in his profile suggests that that's going to sustain long term. And Arizona has just been smashing all season against right-handed pitching. 4th weighted runs created plus, 2nd in ISO last 30. So yeah, right back to the D-backs here. Don't really have an issue with anyone in the lineup. I'd probably say Pavin Smith, my least favorite, just because of the pinch hit risk. And then Seattle, like you said, I think is pretty sneaky here. Arizona bullpen is in trouble. Like they've been really bad. They just lost their closer last night. So yeah, I really like the lefties. Justin Martinez got hurt last night, which is obviously their best bullpen arm. So the Seattle lefties in particular, we don't have the lineup yet, but they should have a bunch in there. You have the expensive ones, like you said, Raleigh, Polanco, Crawford, but they should have some cheap bets in there too. They called up Cole Young, who's 2,100. Dominic Canzone could start here against the righty. He's under 3K. I think Seattle makes a lot of sense. Maybe as like a cheap secondary stack too. Like if you want to play expensive Yankees or expensive Giants or expensive Angels or expensive Arizona, go the game stack. I really like both sides of this game. And just kind of overall on the slate, the reason that I'm not all in on the Giants is I just really like a bunch of spots. Like it's really good weather everywhere, not just in Coors. It's not like we have Coors where it's 85 and it's 45 degrees everywhere else. Like we've got really good weather pretty much across the board tonight.
We certainly do. Going to be an awesome night of baseball. A couple more things, and we'll get out of here, get to Coors, get in the Discord, answer questions, all that good stuff over at Run Pure Sports. But before that, Steve, of course, we got to do the Dong Draft. We've been pretty solid at picking home runs in this format. We'll each pick 3. You get 1.5 credit for 1.5 if your player is $3,500 on DraftKings or below that price tag. If you're ready, Steve, I will I'll give you first go at it.
All right, I'm going to go first pick. Go back, or no, we're going to go to the Yankees. We're going to go with Paul Goldschmidt. You gave me the first pick. You gave me the first one.
100% my first pick. Well, I'll get a 1.5 here. Give me Mr. Addison Barger at 3,300.
Barger 1.5. All right, I'm going to go out west. I like those games out west that we just talked about here. I'm going to no. I'm going to go with Taylor Ward. He's been a bit quiet lately. He gets back on track tonight against Mitchell Spence and the A's. Taylor Ward.
I won't cross the bridge of taking Aaron Judge, but I will take a 6K Cal Raleigh. I think it's fair if they're
that's who I was gonna take.
That's like the last player you could take.
Right. And then I'll go to Arizona. Guy who had a hot week, didn't do anything last night, but I think it's back on track tonight. Ketel Marte will be my third one.
Yeah, let me down last night as well. I'll stick with the Snakes too, though, and go with Mr. Eugenio Suarez. Right-handed hitters have smashed Evans so far this year.
Oh, good. The two guys who struck out with the bases loaded for us.
Yeah, that's what we're going back to.
Got to go back to them.
They owe us.
Yeah. Bank, I like Matt. We didn't do any Braves, but those are good picks too.
100%. A lot of options on this particular slate. That's the Dong draft. Steve, give me your preferred pitching combination on DraftKings. I think we might end up with the same one here.
I'm gonna say a different SB2 since I know we're both gonna be on Gore here. I'll go Gore and Bassett as a pivot at the same price tag to Griffin Canning.
Yeah, mostly a 3-pitcher slate for me. Gore and Harrison, Kyle Harrison for the Giants, are my favorites. Bassett third, and pretty much just those three. Stacks, Steve, give me your top 2 stacks of the night.
Yeah, going back to earlier in the slate, I really like this spot for the Yankees. I just like to pick on pitchers who have been sun running, who are not guys who are going to sustain it. If you keep at it, like these guys are going to come back to earth. We saw it last week with Randy Vasquez. I don't think that Cameron is quite that bad of a pitcher, but this is just a really, really tough spot for Cameron against maybe the best lineup in baseball. So I'll go with the Yankees, and then my cop out for the other one is going to be a game stack out in Arizona.
All right, 3 stacks for Steve. I will go with the Nationals, kicking off the. Always good to have your, a 1 through 5 stack for the very first game of the slate. So
yeah,
see how you're doing early and plan your night out.
The Island early game.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? We're gonna double down and go with the Rays as well. We'll get some Nationals, some Rays. Hopefully, have some good top of the first innings to get us going on this 11-game slate. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate the support. We'll of course be in the Discord answering questions for members. Get the Coors up, everything you need over at Run Pure Sports. I'll be back tomorrow with stats. Until then, he's Steve Boyden. I'm DC. We're out of here.